FNaF used to be scary, right? I was scouring through the internet like I normally do every Christmas, and with the new year coming just around the corner, it made me reflect on a lot of stuff from my past, most notably Mr. Ferdinand. One nostalgia trip later, and suddenly I'm watching every FNaF video Markiplier has ever put out, but watching these in order is a little insane. The jump between games is jarring. With releases spread out between 10 years, I never truly realized just how much the franchise has changed, and that left me with one question. How did we end up here? With these designs, this story, these videos, these books, no sanity, no map pad, is that Scott, no direction, weird movie, odd decisions, and so much more that makes you really question just what happened to this horror game. Since the Mimic has been teased to release soon, I think it's time we take a look back on FNaF and see just how the series has managed to stray so far from its roots. Because within the last 8 years, FNaF has slowly chipped away at its horror so much that it's nearly been ruined, unrecognizable from what it once was. To even understand how we got here, let's take it all the way back to August 14th, 2014. Youngish Scott Cawthon had just released his hit game Five Nights at Freddy's. You know the background, I don't need to tell you. Saved his family from poverty, put him on the map, made the career for all these people, and made every Let's Player collectively shit themselves.
Tell me how many calories I need, bitch!
Why? Because FNaF was more than just jump scares, contrary to what some people will tell you. The way Scott was able to instill fear into the people that played the game were through these two methods: atmosphere and uncanniness. The atmosphere in the first FNaF game has never been replicated by any other entry in the series. I know every other FNaF YouTuber has beat you over the head with this notion, but there's a reason why it's one of the main talking points people bring up when they talk about FNaF 1. The empty office, the ambience, the sound design that does so much to make you paranoid at the slightest sound, only to open the cameras and see that none of the animatronics have even moved yet. I hold the belief that FNaF 1 is a masterpiece of indie horror sound design. It's perfect. It doesn't end at just the setting or the sound though, because the other thing Scott was able to capture is the uncanny creepiness of real-life animatronics. I think this is shown nowhere better than this still frame of Chica in the right hallway. Her jaw is agape and she stares forward blankly. We know it shouldn't be moving, yet the animatronics shift through the room with nothing behind its eyes. The fact that we never see any of them directly moving helps a lot too, keeping that unease throughout every frame that we can see them. Of course, this all builds up with the release that is simply a jump scare, but it all pays off. It's not a cheap thing just thrown in your face for a few seconds. It's carefully crafted and well-deserved anticipation for when you finally see one of the robots lunge at you. Now let's take it all the way to the other end of the spectrum, FNaF Security Breach. The atmosphere of this game is a bright neon mall with an 80s theme. Okay, interesting. Not the scariest, but maybe Steelwool can make something creative. But of course, that's not what we see. Security Breach is the exact opposite of everything the series had built up across its previous 7 years. The atmosphere is nowhere to be found when it comes to building up anything scary. The most frightening thing about this game is figuring out where in the hell you're even supposed to go to get the 80th security pass just to go to a room where you can finally get the key you need just to go to an entirely separate room. I'd like to say the designs can carry at least. We've had games with mediocre atmosphere that have managed to stay somewhat creepy with clever lighting and good designs. Come on. Of course they don't, silly. Obviously, have you seen them? Nothing about these designs scream Five Nights at Freddy's to me. Can you believe that these two characters exist in the same universe and they were both made with the intentions of getting someone to piss their jammies? I can't. They look like they were made for 2016 FNaF Battle SFMs. I'm sorry, but I don't find chase scene number 300 where Gregory breaks the ankles of the cast of Care Bears to be at all good horror. Clearly, it's not just the oversaturation of FNaF games that make it fall flat in the fear department. Plenty of fan games are able to recreate the same paranoia of sound and movement that the first games did so well. But in the modern rendition of FNaF, gone is the creative lighting, unique designs, daunting atmosphere, earned jump scares. It doesn't even feel like the same series I fell in love with 10 years ago. It feels like generic mascot horror game number 23. And that's because, well, it isn't. Everything that set FNaF aside from Poppy's Playtime or fucking Garden of Banban hasn't been seen in years. This is shown in no better place than the lore. See, I view FNaF in two very different lenses. FNaF 1 through 3, and then FNaF 4 through Security Breach. The first 4 games are a simple story. It's the story of 4 murders by one man, the story of how those spirits became vengeful and angry, and how they eventually take their revenge on that same man 20 years later, inflicting the same pain on him that he caused to them out of nothing but evil. It's not the most groundbreaking, life-changing story, nor is it the scariest thing, but it's a well put together narrative, and there's a reason why the story has always been a big part of the franchise. It's drip-fed to us through unsettling screens, uneasy minigames, and sound effects that can make your skin crawl. There was stuff like the number pad wall, but you could look past that to gather what was a really generally well-crafted narrative, even if there was a few loose ends. Five Nights at Freddy's sister location to Security Breach includes, and I don't exaggerate,
a robot that mimics actions, illusion discs, a mad scientist, a machine that steals your insides and replaces it with the robots, robots that can act like humans, robots with full sentience, fanny mask, rogue AI that steals people's mind, Phasgo,
and so much more that makes you truly wonder how many lines Scott was running off of when he made these games. It's no secret that FNaF has really gone off the deep end in the story department, with so many weird choices and retcons that half the fan base can't bring themselves to actually care about whatever is going on next. It will absolutely get its own video one day because I have plenty to say, but I want to specifically focus on one aspect of the lore that I think perfectly encapsulates all my problems with it: the suspension of disbelief. See, for some reason, I've seen this notion that FNaF has always been pretty silly. When I or others point to the insane turns that the series has taken around sister location, I've seen some say that the child nabber suits or the robots living in human skins have always been just as out there as William getting springlocked or the kids getting stuffed. I think it's pretty obvious why this isn't the case, and that once again ties into the suspension of disbelief. The person that actually put this the best is the king of FNaF himself. Look here.
You know, I think that people are willing to suspend disbelief that of a certain thing, but when you continually ask people to disbelieve more and more, it's almost not fair to the audience, because you're like, okay, souls of children trapped in suits or animatronics, right? That's already, you have to suspend a little bit of disbelief for the magic of what that is. And magic's a blanket sweep term, but let's just call it like magic, because that's basically what it is. You can't explain it, it just is, so everyone has to go like, okay, I can suspend the weirdness of what that is because the payoff was really cool. But then it gets more, you know, there's more disbelief to suspend, there's more things to do, and it's cool, you know, things do get cool. The nightmare kind of thing in Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is like, okay, all right, it's like a kid in a hospital, he's delirious, he's lost his frontal lobe, okay, that's cool. Wait, no it's not. Oh, there's a mimic that's been there since the very beginning that none of us knew about, and there was no clue about for any of the other thing. Okay, yeah, so it's like things like that are unfair to people when you've already asked them to put so much of themselves into the story.
Not only are these two concepts wildly different in tone, one being more sci-fi and the other being a more grounded horror, but every new game past FNaF 3 continually asks the audience to suspend more and more disbelief, to the point where it gets out of hand and almost becomes ridiculous. I can't focus on any of the cool ideas or the disturbing nature of what's being talked about because I'm too busy wrapping my head around what 12-year-old boy is a robot and which one is it like a— wow, that was a fucking tragic stutter, Jesus. Because I'm too busy wrapping my head around what 12-year-old boy is a robot and which one is the Kakashi of serial unalivers. This isn't figuring out who was bit when or who did the killing. It feels more like I'm reading a Goosebumps book than anything that the series had done prior. Just as Mark puts it, it's not fair to the audience. And yet with each passing game, these ideas get more out there and more far-fetched, concluding with the most recent title being about a character who we've never seen but has supposedly always been there. So what does that leave us with? Character designs that are barely designed to be scary, a story that leaves much to be desired in the horror department, lackluster gameplay that fails to capture the slightest bit of tone from any of the earlier entries. It's hard to even look at these parts of the franchise as connected. It's like an entirely new game that carries the title of FNaF in name alone. It's saddening, an erosion of a masterclass in atmosphere and clever story devices being reduced to the floundering mess that we have today. But you know what? That's okay. You heard that right, it's absolutely bueno. Because I fucking love FNaF. This is the speech where I stop complaining and I start looking up almost. I complain a little bit this speech time. Enough with the doom and gloom. Yes, the series has changed. Yes, I'm not happy with the series direction. And yes, I feel like the modern rendition has thrown out and destroyed everything that made it special. But I'm still hopeful. I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't care. Hell, I wouldn't have made my channel if I didn't care. FNaF has been a big part of my life for 10 years, and there's nothing on this planet that this series could do to make me stop loving it. I'll still watch and play the wonderful fan creations that the talented people all over the internet have worked so hard to put out. And at the end of the day, I'll always hope for change, that the series can recapture its magic and return to its roots. Even with the heavy sci-fi themes, there's been some fantastic stories told through an entirely different lens of horror. One Step Closer, Into the Pit, Count the Ways, amazing stories that show the franchise still has plenty to offer. We might never get the great atmosphere again or the uncanny robots idling in the hallways, but it doesn't mean we can't get an entirely new and unique project that blows all expectations out of the water. So at the end of the day, despite everything, I'm gonna keep loving this ruined series until the day I die. Speaking of dying, if you want to see if you could even survive FNaF or want a blast from the past of FNaF nostalgia, click on one of these videos here. But if not, thank you for watching.